Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, Sarah, and I've got another monthly reading wrap-up video for you, this time for October. Let's get into the books, the highs, the lows, the yeah buts, and all of the in-betweens for each of the 9 books that I read this month. Okay, so let's get right into it with the books. So the first book that I finished in October was Created in Chaos by Albany Walker. Now, this book is the second of the Corrupt Credence series, and this story follows Nova, Lucian, and Knox. Now, I don't know if you watched my wrap-up video back a few months ago when I reviewed the first book in the series, but this second book really is a departure from the first book in that there's actually something that happens. So there's some action, there's some drama, and we get a little bit of resolution, but not really. So this book does end in a cliffhanger because there is a third book. But anyway, let's talk about what happens in Created in Chaos. So at the beginning of this book, Nova has been attacked. And we spend the first part of the book really trying to understand what happened. They don't know if she's going to survive the attack. And so Knox and Lucian, being the super wealthy, super powerful, yet in college students that they are, these twin brothers, mobilize their resources to really try to find out what happened. And then the rest of the series is trying to understand who did it. So there's kind of a lot more drama that happens, things that unfold, and the relationship between Nova, Knox, and Lucian deepens to become intimate. So there's more spice in this book, but it is MFM, so that you know the brothers are twin brothers, and so they just share. There's no like I said in my October TBR video, so none of that. But yeah, more stuff happens, but not quite enough. So the way that the book concluded, there is a bit of a cliffhanger that involves Nova's family, and there's always some weirdness going on with her grandparents. By the way, she lives with her grandparents. So if this series is new to you, let me just catch up. Nova's parents pass away, and in the first book, she gets contacted by her grandparents to come live in their estate in this like uber wealthy gated area in some coastal town in South Carolina. So she does. So throughout the first book and even the second book, there's some suspense surrounding her grandparents, and it's deepened, but it's not resolved in this story. So my hope is that in the third book we get some resolution about like the weirdness with her family, because she spends almost the entire book with Knox and Lucian in their house and not with her grandparents. So it's a little strange. So anyway, if it sounds convoluted, it is a little convoluted, this story. So sorry. But anyway, I gave this book 3.5 stars because it was interesting. It was kind of to the point in that it's 272 pages. So kind of short for everything that they kind of get into. So it means like they're moving the story along. So it didn't drag. It was engaging. But ultimately, I was just like kind of annoyed. I was kind of annoyed at the way that it ended. So I'll read the third one, but hopefully it's worth it. Hopefully it's worth my time. So anyway, again, 3.5 stars for Created in Chaos. Then the next book that I finished in October was The Pucking Wrong Guy by C.R. Jane. And this published September 29th, 2023, and is 414 pages. And this story follows Blake and Ari. Now, Ari is a star hockey player on the hockey team in Dallas. Now, the story opens up with him requesting a transfer to the team in Los Angeles for 1 year. So he's going to go move from his super successful Dallas team to like a mediocre LA team because he has an ulterior motive. And that motive is to find Blake. Now, Blake is a model who's moved from Los Angeles. No, sorry. She's moved to Los Angeles from New York, leaving behind her super rich adoptive family, her rich boyfriend, and she's really trying to make it on her own in the industry. Now, why is Ari trying to find her? So they were childhood friends in like a group foster home, kind of like a group home. They were both in the foster system. And she was actually known as Layla before she was adopted. So her adoptive parents changed her name. And anyway, so present time, Ari's driving down the road and he sees her on a billboard and he nearly crashes his car, gets a private investigator on it and finds out that she goes by Blake and is living in Los Angeles. And so that's why he's moved there. So the rest of their story unfolds kind of from that kind of setting. So the thing about this book that I really enjoyed was Ari. I really liked his character. He was arrogant, cocky, all of that jazz, but his inner monologue was really funny and it made me laugh out loud a couple of times. And he was a low-key stalker, just like the first book. That's kind of I think the theme for all of the books in the series is kind of like stalker, anti-hero guys that you want them to get the girl. And they feel really justified in their actions. So Ari's no different. And so that was funny. Their relationship was, if you take the premise that he's kind of a stalker and really kind of controlling the outcome, the things that unfold track somebody who has money and who really wants to kind of make sure that he gets the outcome that he wants. It all makes sense. The thing that was tough for me about the characters was Blake. So she's a model. She's apparently really beautiful enough that some guy would like freaking totally change his life and stalk her. And she's really insecure and she has body image issues. And there's some trigger warnings about self-harm in the book that, I think if you self-harm, you would want to take seriously. But for me, it was a little challenging to read, not from a like I'm triggered standpoint, but from I just really prefer to read strong characters, women that have strong sense of themselves, know their own minds, are funny. And it's not that she's playing a victim, and that she really does have low self-esteem. So she's really dealing with herself. So it's a little bit like, it was just a little like cringy for me in some parts. But overall, I did really like the story and I gave it 4.5 stars. So didn't love the heroine, but still gave it 4.5 stars because I did really like it. Check the trigger warnings with all of these books. But another really good installment in the Pucking Wrong series by Sierra Jane. And I'm really looking forward to the third one, which is Walker's story. Now, okay, we know Walker from the Pucking Wrong guy. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because he's a rookie on the LA team. He was described as a Disney prince. So, like I said, I think the theme for all of the books in the series is that the hero is like a stalker. So, let's see how that like Walker the stalker unfolds in the third book. Okay. Okay. So then the third book that I finished in October was The Canary Cowards by Jescie Hall. This book published September 10th, 2023. It's 507 pages. This story follows Dylan and Lake. Now, let's see. Dylan is a physical therapist, and she is working in just a regular physical therapy center. She doesn't specialize in athletes, but she had a friend from college who was a professional football player who tore his ACL, and she helped him get back onto the field in record time. So Lake is a star running back, in whatever team, for whatever team in the town that they live in. I don't remember if it's Chicago or someplace. I don't know. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Some medium-sized city with an NFL team he plays for, but he tears his ACL. And so he seeks Dylan out because she was so effective. Now, I think he thinks that she's a man based on her name. And so when he goes to her PT center, he like goes to her center, doesn't like bring her to the facilities because he's trying to like do his physical therapy, like not on the low, but just like without a lot of like oversight from the team. He's trying to just like power through and get back on the field as fast as possible. And he has his reasons for doing that. But anyway, so I think he thinks that Dylan is a man. And so when he sees her, he's surprised and he calls her stale. Like he has a bad impression of her based on what she's wearing. And she's trying to like hide her looks by wearing baggy clothes. And so he calls her stale and it pisses her off. So, that starts off like kind of like an enemies kind of situation. So she agrees to train him and like begrudgingly because she's got her own struggles in her personal life for which she needs the money. So, anyway, I really enjoyed this story. It was long. It does kind of take some turns, but I felt like it was pretty emotional and handled really well. Pretty poignant in places. There is autism representation. There is death of a parent. There's, I think that's it in terms of triggers, but again, check the trigger warnings for the book. But I did enjoy it. I had read Hawk by the author previously, and I didn't really like that book. I think I gave it like 2 stars. So I figured, I don't know why I picked this book up. I picked this book up like right before October started, and it took me about 10 days to read it. And I think that's only because I had about 4 books going at once, which I don't recommend doing. So whatever. But I gave this book 4.5 stars. I liked it. It wasn't anything like Hawk, which I don't subscribe to the hype around that book at all, but I did really like The Canary Cowards by Jessie. So 4.5 stars. Okay, then the next book that I finished in October was These Two Wrongs by Julia Wolf. Now, this book was published October 5th, 2023, 380 pages, and this is book 2 in the Savage Academy series. So this follows Reese and Delilah, both of whom we met in book 1 of the Savage Academy series. So this is it's not really an enemies to lovers. It's kind of like an acquaintances to lovers scenario, right? They are in high school. It's a boarding school, the Savage Academy. And they are 18. So it's not like you're dealing with children. Yay! This author does a good job with that. Like, I don't think I've read any of her books that are where they're underage. I haven't read the Savage River Crew series though, which is with the like public school in this Savage River town. This is the 3rd series set in that town, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, so let's move on. So Reese and Delilah are like friends of people who are dating. So they have mutual friends. So they kind of have a friend group. They don't really interact. They don't really notice each other, except she notices him because he's really handsome. He knows of her, but he can't remember her name. So that's one of the kind of running jokes, is that he calls her name is Delilah, and he calls her a bunch of other things. But they all go to a party one evening that is by the river, I think. And Delilah and Reese end up kind of coupling off and hooking up. And it was underwhelming for her. So he just does his thing, and she's like horrified by how terrible it was. So this might be kind of spoiler. I'm going to put spoiler-ish in the beginning of this video. Okay. So he notices that she ghosts him. Like she just avoids eye contact and like really trying to interact with him, which is noticeable to him because they're friend groups all together typically. And he notices that she just avoids him, and he wants to know why. So he forces it out of her, and she's like, I don't think you want to know. And he's, no, really, tell me. And so she tells him, and he's shocked. He can't believe it. He's never had this terrible feedback before. Meanwhile, he's a hit it and quit it guy who doesn't hook up with girls at the school. So like how would he know, right? He doesn't see these women, right? So their relationship deepens when it's a kind of a tutelage scenario. And I really thought that aspect of kind of their intimate experience was really interesting. And I felt like it was handled with care. I really felt like it was handled with care. And this, for me, is one of the most unique books I've ever read. It's new adult, kind of, it's not really coming of age, but it's new adult. And I've never seen that. I've read a handful of new adult books. I tend to shy away from them, but it's typically because I get like a cringe. But I really, really liked the way this author handled, what you think is probably a pretty normal experience for young women and men too, right? Like, it's not good. So I liked it. So I recommend this book, 4.5 stars for these two wrongs. There's some family drama. If both Reese and Delilah have some family drama, there's found family. And yeah, I just really like this author. I recommend her writing. And this book is no different. So 4.5 stars. Okay. So then the next book that I read was Fall Into You by J.T. Geissinger. I'm sorry, it's Geissinger. Okay. This book was published in September 28th of 2023 and is 366 pages. So this book follows Cole and Shay. Now, Cole and Shay meet in a hotel bar. It's like a hotel restaurant. Shay is out with her friends. So Cole is the hero. Shay is the heroine. So Shay is out with her friends. She has just broken up with her boyfriend because she found out he was cheating on her, like a serial cheater. Like, I don't know that he'd ever been faithful. That's not okay with her. So she breaks up with them. She goes out with her girlfriends to kind of commiserate and make her feel better. And they notice Cole. He's at a table by himself and he's like smoking hot, and they dare Shay to go talk to him. So she does, and they end up having a night together out of that interaction. So really, really fun time. I think, do they give each other fake names? I think they give each other fake names or something. They don't really leave each other with like a way to contact each other. So it's one of those. So Shay goes about her life, and Cole is the CFO of his family's media empire. So he's a billionaire. And Shay is a financial guru, but kind of, she's not like a leadership level, but she ends up needing a job for whatever reason, or she's kind of looking around. And she goes to the bookstore that Emery from the first book in this series, Liars Like Us. I didn't mention that this book, Fall Into You, is the second book of the Morally Gray series. So let's get that out of the way. So Emery from Liars Like Us owns a bookstore, and Shay is a frequent customer. So Shay's talking to Emery, and she's like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. I don't remember what she says, but Emery brings up that her brother-in-law is looking for an assistant. Gives her the details. Apparently it's a ton of money. It's a ton of money because Cole is apparently a really terrible boss, fires people, is really hard to please. So she's like, all right, I'll give it a try. But Emery doesn't tell Shay who it is. Actually, I think Shay got his name. But for whatever reason, the family's really secretive. Cole doesn't really like make his presence known in the world that, he's the CFO of this company. I mean, like, investors know, but it's not really like in the media. Like, they're the media, they can take it out. So she goes through all these rounds of interviews. It's like pretty secretive. She never has to interview with him. And then she starts the job and meets him, and it's him. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's you. And then it's kind of off to the races from there. So The story was really interesting, and it was really different than the first story. So why Cole is morally gray is he is a person who does bad things for a good reason off hours. Okay. So runs the kind of financial aspect of the family company, and then in his off time does bad things for a good reason. So he's got it in his head that he doesn't deserve love. Meanwhile, Shay is like, okay, she's really conflicted because she really wants to keep this job, and she's really committed to proving everybody wrong, that he's not terrible. She finds him, just with their kind of tryst, she found him to be wonderful, and spends a lot of time trying to convince him that of like to see what she sees. And he's like, no, I'm a bad man. So anyway, their relationship kind of builds out work, much to her kind of resistance to that, because she wants to keep her job, wants to be professional. But then at some point she really just like gives into her feelings, and like I said, is really wanting to convince him that like they belong together. So that's that. So for me, this book was good. The banter was really good. It was dual POV, which was great because Liars Like Us was not, which was annoying. So we do get that other POV, and the kind of resolution was satisfying. The kind of like exposure of what it is that he does that's so bad is interesting. But there was a plot point that I would like confused me. I'm not sure of. So let's just raise that. So Shay's favorite book is Love in the Time of Cholera. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, pretty sure that's his name. Famous South American author. Pretty sure it's Colombian. I don't know. Don't quote me. Why am I saying all this? I should know because I studied Latin America in college and grad school. So I haven't read it. So I haven't read this book, and it's referenced a lot. So it makes me think that these characters kind of struggle to come together is based on that story. And I haven't read that book, so I was like, I don't know if this is about, like, this is the same theme, but I was a little confused by that. So it kind of took away, I feel like it kind of took away from the story rather than adding it, because I didn't read Love in the Time of Cholera. So it kind of was like, what does this have to do with anything? So and the thing about it is that how many people have read Love in the Time of Cholera? Not that many. I mean, probably who are going to read this book, not that many. So it's like, anyway, it's fine. I'm beating a dead horse. 3.5 stars. This one didn't hit for me. This is probably one of her books that I've hit the least, which is like super, super unfortunate. I was really excited. So anyway, a little disappointing, but still really good aspects of the book. But that part for me, just about like, what is this based on? Is this based on some, classic novel? Just kind of, I got wrapped around the axle about that. So anyway, if you loved it, awesome. If you're like me, more power to you. Okay. So then the next book that I finished was Best Laid Plans by Karla Sorenson. This book published October 3rd, 2023, and is 359 pages. So I listened to this book. This came with a free Audible Kindle kind of corresponding narration. So downloaded it from Kindle and could listen to it in Audible. I love that. Thank you. Don't love Amazon, except for they do a few things right, and that's one of them. So I loved that. So, excuse me. Anyway, so I listened to it, and I did enjoy the narration. I thought the narrators did a good job, so they didn't detract from the story at all. So let's talk about the story and what did I like about it. So this follows the grumpy ex-football player, Burke, and the sunshiny restoration expert, like home renovation, historical restoration expert, Charlotte. So Burke has had a very dear friend of his pass away and leave Burke a home that they were going to renovate in Michigan. So Charlotte had been contracted before these people died. It was Burke's friend and the friend's wife that both passed away. Anyway, so Charlotte was contracted to be the project manager for the renovations, like the restoration of his house to its historical glory. And so Burke has to kind of struggle through, like, is he going to complete on the plans that his friends had for this house or not? So he decides to go do it, leaves Florida, where he is living post-retirement from the NFL. And he has all the plans in the world to retire to Florida, sit by the beach, and just relax. And meanwhile, ends up going to Michigan to like oversee the restoration of his house because he has to make a bunch of decisions and spend some money. So they meet. They have kind of a funny. It's not a meet cute. It's kind of their meet cute's kind of interesting. I won't go into it. I won't spoil it. But she's so sunshine, and she's so in love with his house as a restoration expert. She finds his grumpiness really off-putting. So it's a little bit of like, it's not enemies, but it's like definitely grumpy sunshine. So they kind of get off to a rocky start. But eventually she decides to go to Burke with a proposal in PowerPoint for why they should have a no strings intimate relationship until the end of the project. And he's like, okay. I mean, it's not that blasé, but they end up entering into this relationship with an end date, and then their story unfolds from there. So the thing that I liked about this story is, so it was a little bit longer of a timeline for this author. It's about 3 months, I think. And the setting, you could actually really understand why this couple would fall for one another. And the way that the characters were developed, I thought was totally great, sufficient to have me like cheering for them. I liked them. I could see why they fell for one another. And I say that, this author, because she's had books, I've said it before, she's had books where it's been like 2 weeks, a week, a timeline where these people fall in love. And I'm like, no. Nope. This was not that book. So I did appreciate that about the storyline and the kind of like time frame. So 4 stars for this story. It's pretty steamy as well, so that's nice. And Burke is like, he's not tortured. He's not totally swoony, but you can tell he's a good guy. He's just had, he had kind of a rough upbringing with his parents, really committed to his sister, been divorced, just kind of been through it. And is really kind of trying to find what's important to him after football. And he's like still fairly young. So kind of struggling. And that's pretty apparent in the story. But Charlotte was just an awesome character, somebody that I thought was really cool. So anyway, I liked it. Like I said, 4 stars. So I recommend The Best Laid Plans by Karla Sorenson. The next book that I finished was The Gossip and the Grump by Pippa Grant. This book published October 5th, 2023, and is 415 pages. This is book 2 in the 3 BFFs and a Wedding series. So this follows Sabrina and Gray. Now, we met Sabrina in the first book of the series called The Worst Wedding Date. She is the best friend of the jilted bride from the first story. Now, the jilted bride, her book is book 3. So I'm excited for that. But anyway, when the story opens, Sabrina is still in Hawaii after the wedding that they all went to Hawaii in the first book. That wedding falls apart. So she's in Hawaii at a hotel bar. She meets Gray at the hotel bar. They start to kind of have a nice banter. They give each other fake names, and they have a tryst. Seems to be it's not the theme for the month, but it's more than one book that I read with that as part of the story. Anyway, they give each other fake names. It's a really great time. She ghosts him, goes back to Snaggletooth Creek, Colorado. Leave it to Pippa Grant to have these like hilarious town names, but like small town setting that she writes a really good small town setting. So anyway, so Gray was in Hawaii because he wanted to ruin the wedding that fell apart, but he got there too late. So it had already fallen apart. And he was like, now what do I do? So he's at the hotel bar, talks to Sabrina, has a good time, is totally not himself because we see Gray again in Snaggletooth Creek because he's the new owner of Sabrina's family's cafe. So Sabrina's cousin, who's the jerkhead villain groom from the first book where their wedding fell apart. I can't remember his name. I didn't look it up. Sorry. Anyway, that guy and Gray are enemies. So it doesn't matter. So Gray buys the cafe. His intention is to like close it or totally change it into something else. He goes by Super Vengeance Man because he's trying to exact vengeance on this guy, Sabrina's cousin, and just kind of like ruin his life. But he goes to the cafe for the first day, and Sabrina, she's a manager, so she shows up. And so it's a surprise when she shows up. He doesn't know that she's related to this guy who he hates. So he starts to kind of distrust her. That's the kind of way it's like they have this really great beginning of their relationship, but then when they like learn each other's real identities, it's kind of an enemies scenario, right? So the rest of the story is kind of built around her convincing Gray not to sell or change the cafe, and him really like wanting to exact his plan. So it's called The Gossip and the Grump because he's obviously grumpy, but she's a gossip, but she's off gossip. So one of the things that she says to Gray when they're Duke and Duchess in Hawaii before their one night stand is that she's off gossip. She wants to use her powers for good. So that's kind of part of the story. It's really it's pretty hilarious. So here's the thing about Pippa Grant. It's going to be funny. It's a funny rom-com. The characters, like the side characters, the small town feel, it's all going to be really good. It's going to be really funny and engaging. The one thing that I will say is that there's typically a lot that happens. So this story has got family and found family. And so there's kind of a lot of side characters and you see them multiple times, and then small town stories. So there's side characters of, the villagers or whatever. And there's a lot of times there's a lot of stuff happening. And then, so there'll be a lot of internal monologue. And a couple of times in particular with Sabrina's internal monologue, I was like, what is happening? What is going on? So that's one thing. So that's all to say. It's kind of like something that author could do a little bit better is kind of like clean that up. But overall, really, really good. 4 stars. I did really like it. It's one of those things, actually, 4 stars. Let me give it 4 stars. It's like, it's a rom-com, steamy, really good, not changing anybody's lives, but just a reliable, good story. So go out and check it out. Okay, so then I read Silent Lies by Neva Altaj. This published October 27th, 2023. This is book 8 of the Perfectly Imperfect series. This story follows Drago and Sienna. Now, I have a video called just strictly dedicated to the Perfectly Imperfect series, books 1 through 7, because I read that entire series in July of this year. Didn't plan on it, just binged it. Super bingeable series. Oh, this story is like 340 pages long, so it's 75 to 100 pages longer than many of the other books in the Perfectly Imperfect series. So anyway, this was also a really good story, kind of in that universe of organized crime. So Sienna is the sister of an underboss for the New York Mafia. Her Don is Salvatore Agello, who we met in, God, what book did we meet him in? It doesn't matter. We met him in an earlier book in the series. So she is the twin sister of the chick Aja, who was abducted and trafficked in Chicago in a previous book. I think that was like Fractured Souls or something like that. It was the one before Burned Dreams. So book 6. I'm pretty sure that was Aja's book. Anyway, this is Aja's twin sister. So she is beautiful. She's vivacious on the outside. She wears really ostentatious clothing. She likes lots of really bright, bold colors. She wears big bows in her hair. She's 20 years old. And so her Dawn is like, calls for a meeting with her, and she's like, this can't be good. Why would I need to have a meeting with Dawn? He says, I need you to go into arranged marriage with Drago, who's the head of the Serbian, I'll call it mafia because I don't know what they call it. And she thinks about it for like a little while, and she decides to enter into this arranged marriage because she thinks about her sister who marries Pasha, lives in Chicago. So she's not in New York anymore. She lives with her brother. Her brother's 35, hasn't dated. And she just is thinking, my brother's not going to move on unless I do. So she says, I really don't want to move out and be alone. She's thinking this to herself, right? So she tells her Don Salvatore, she's like, yeah, I'll do it. Now, meanwhile, it's offered to Drago to join in an arranged marriage because Drago is involved in the arms kind of trade in New York, and the Serbian like family and the New York like Brafa Italian family, they like want to start doing business because apparently is it like a Brafa Bosnian? Anyway, there's a different like outfit altogether that has like kind of monopolized the arms trade in New York, and Salvatore kind of wants an in, and so he sees Drago as that in. So he's like, okay, let's have an arranged marriage so we can get an into the arms trade. So that's the business end of it all. So Drago is in his late 30s. He's the head of the Serbian organized crime family. He came from Serbia, settled in New York. 15 years prior to when the story begins, his parents and youngest sister were killed in a house fire. It was like a gas line explosion or something. So he has some burns, and he has some hearing loss at a high frequency. So he can't hear women. Like he can hear that they're saying words, but he doesn't really understand the words that they're saying. So that's just an aspect of his character. So Sienna and Drago go to a club separately with the purpose of meeting one another. Drago takes one look at her, is really interested by her because she puts on this like really happy front, but inside is like very lonely and depressed, carries a lot of like sadness around. She does carry some guilt around her parents' death, which is, she goes into, like the author goes into that in the book. I'm not going to spoil that here, but she basically has a happy facade, and Drago notices that the like mask slips and is like really interested in that. So he agrees to the marriage after interacting with her for like a little bit. So they get married. And then she moves into the house, and their relationship kind of deepens. And then similar to other stories in this series, there's some drama regarding that. I think it's the Bosnian arms dealer. He's like a central villain in some other books too, but that's featured in the story too. So you get a little bit of like, you definitely get some mafia action in this story. And then you get that really, I think, good romance story. I did really like it. It's not my favorite of the stories, but I did really like it. I thought it was a solid addition to the series. So 4.25 stars in the Star Search rating scale for Silent Lies. I am really looking forward to the next installment, book 9. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Okay, so then finally, the last book that I finished on October 31st, because I was like, I will, over my dead body, will I not finish this book in October? So there was a sleepless night for sure. I haven't done that in a while. So Caught Up by Liz Thomforde, book 3 in the Windy City series. This was published October 10th, 2023. This book is, I don't know how long. Let's talk about it. Okay. So this story follows, I'll address that comment in a second. Okay. So this story follows Kai Rhodes and Miller Montgomery. Now, Kai is a single dad baseball pitcher. Miller is a world-renowned, award-winning pastry chef, and she doesn't have her own kitchen, but she does consulting gigs around the country. So she goes from place to place and is never in any city for very long. But her dad is Kai's coach. I think he's the coach for this Chicago baseball team. And so Miller contacts her dad and is like, hey, I'm taking 2 months off this summer. I'd love to come to Chicago. And he's like, oh, the dad is like, oh, I'm so excited. You should totally do that. And at the same time, Kai fires yet another nanny. He is notorious for not keeping any nanny to watch his son. Doesn't trust anybody. So part of the reason for that is he became a dad 6 months after his son was born. So son is a result of a one-night stand with a fan in Chicago. Some chick he would hook up with whenever he was in Seattle or someplace like that. So she has a baby without him knowing. And then 6 months after when the baby's 6 months old, she shows up at his doorstep and is like, I can't do this. Here you go. And takes off. So he's like, oh my God, I have a 6-month-old, and feels super guilty that he didn't know about it, is also really excited to be a dad and wanted to retire, went to his coach, Monty, who, by the way, needs a book. If you're watching this, Liz Thomforde, he needs a book. Okay. Anyway, I digress. So goes to his coach and is like, I want to retire right away. But he's the best pitcher, or one of the best pitchers in the league. So the coach is like, whoa, we'll make this work. So it's been 9 months since Kai got his son Max. And it's been many nannies. And then in between nannies is the team staff helping watch this kid because the kid travels with them. So anyway, the book opens up. Is again in need of a nanny. Miller is there. Her dad convinces her to basically be like, yeah, I'll watch your kid because she'll travel with the team. So then the dad will be able to spend time with his daughter, and Kai will have somebody watching his kid. So bada boom, bada bing, all good. Bob's your uncle, right? So the book opens up with Kai meeting Miller and being super, super attracted to her, but kind of not trusting her to watch his kid. And then the Miller really, really takes to the kid, who's super cute. So she falls for the kid. And then her feelings deepened for Kai over the 2 months that they're together. Okay, let's talk about that little detail. 2 months? Come on. So some of the stuff they were saying to each other at the end of the book, it was 2 months. Okay. So I apparently am sensitive to a short timeline, but for me, it was a little unbelievable about that. So here's the thing. This author writes incredibly swoony heroes. So Kai Rose is no different. Would I totally change my life for this man? Oh, yeah. I would drop everything. I'd be like, oh, you want me to move to Chicago and be your baby mama? Okay. Sure. Yes, that's no question, right? But Miller has a very strong belief about how, the difference that she wants to make with her career. She's really committed and kind of attached to her career going a certain way because she feels like she owes it to her dad, who sacrificed a lot for her growing up. So she wants to excel in any way that she can. And she views giving up her like fine dining pastry chef gig, like career, as like disappointing her father. So that aspect of her character was a little bit annoying, just a little annoying because I was like, girl. But what you'll get in the book is found family, because, Ryan and Indy from book 2 show up, Xanders and Stevie from book 1 show up. So super great found family, great dialogue, very good. So I do give this book 4.5 stars. Okay. It's kind of, I feel like book 2, book 1, book 3 in that order are my favorites. But that's to say is I am excited for book 4 because it features Kai's brother, who we met, and like his storyline is like kind of his background sort of, and like that storyline's fleshed out in Caught Up. Okay. What do I mean by I don't know how long this book is? Okay. So when I put this book and like added it to my TBR, it was listed as 508 pages, the Kindle version. Okay. When I downloaded it, it was 508 pages. And I was like, cool, buckle up. This is a long book. Okay. But I know that like all the books in the series have been like that. Okay. So then at some point, my Kindle version is 393 pages. And I'm like, what happened to 115 pages? Okay. And then I go back to the book entry in Amazon, like on the store, and it says Kindle version 408 pages. But if you go to Goodreads, the version I added to my TBR is 508 pages. So how long is this book supposed to be? I don't actually know if I finished the book. Like I read some, resolution chapters. But from where I stand, there's 115 pages I haven't read. So WTF Amazon. And why do I say that? Okay, that's annoying and not the first time that's happened. That happened, I think there was a Bella DeCorte book that happened to recently, like this year. Like it's listed, you get the page count and, in its like kind of pre-sale phase. And then it gets to Kindle Unlimited and it's way shorter. Like, is it just because they're independently edited and like edits are happening until the last minute? I don't know. But I just am kind of like, I feel confused and I feel gypped. So forgive the rant, but I really liked the book. But you tell me, like, how long is the freaking print version? Like, should I buy this book in print? And then like, there's like 5 extra chapters. I mean, come on. So anyway, this is not the first, nor will it be the last time that Amazon does this. And I think in particular, like I said, it'll happen with independently published books, excuse me. Okay. So that's it. There you have it. Those are the 9 books that I read in October. I'll list the page counts here. Like how many pages did I read in the month? It's a lot. I got busy at work. There was just a lot of stuff going on. So it's not the 15 books that I said I would read when I did my October TBR video. I didn't read the Devil Duet by Ashley Jade. I added that to some later month. We'll see if I get to it. I don't know, but it's all good. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Leave me comments, click like and subscribe. And as always, have a fabulous day.